Filled with wrath and despair, he mounted Roquelaure and rode forth alone, and none might restrain him. He passed over like a wind amid the dust, and all that beheld his onset fled in amaze, thinking Orome himself was come. For a great madness of rage was upon him, so that his eyes shone like the eyes of the Valar. Thus he came alone to Angband's gates, and he sounded his horn, and smote once more upon the brazen doors, and challenged Morgoth to come forth in single combat. And Morgoth came. Hey guys.
Hey there, welcome back.
Welcome back to Keep on Tolkien.
Or welcome for the first time.
Either way,
welcome.
Yeah, I'm Joel N.
And I'm Danny J.
And we are here with you guys today with episode 33. And this is part 2 of our new, cool 3-part series of this season.
Princes of the Noldor.
Princes of the Noldor, where we cover any princes of the Noldor we really feel like talking about.
Whoever the hell we feel like.
Yeah, because there's a lot of them out
There's
there.
a lot of princes, man.
And they're all really good characters. But
they're
today...
all cool. Well, some of them aren't so cool.
No, some of them are douchebags.
Some of them are douchebags.
Straight up. But today we're going to be talking about one of my personal favorites. I think he might be my personal favorite of the princes. Fingolfin, son of Finwë.
Yeah, the most valiant of all, right?
Oh yeah, he gets a lot of high praise and credit.
Oh yeah. So who is Fingolfin? Let's start there.
Yeah, let's start off fresh from the bottom. Who is Fingolfin, son of Finwë?
So first off, son of Finwë.
Well, at one point he was the High King of the Noldor, not just a prince.
Mm-hmm.
And that was at the very beginning of the First Age. So he was the first High Prince of the Noldor in the First Age.
Yeah, and a lot of these Princes of the Noldor series we're doing, a lot of them will be king at some point.
Right.
But they are all princes of the Noldor for life, but they sometimes become king. So
yeah, a lot of them end up dying.
Yeah.
As you come
Spoiler
to find.
alert.
Spoiler alert, a lot of the princes of the Noldor die.
So yeah, so he's one of the High King of the Noldor at the beginning of the First Age.
Another quick fun fact about Fingolfin, as you may have gathered from that opening excerpt, he is actually the only elf to have ever fought Melkor in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, and we'll get all up in that in a little bit.
That's such a rich scene. So let's jump into some names for Fingolfin. He doesn't have too many. One of his actual name is Nolo Finwë. He's also got the title of High King of the Noldor and King of Hithlum.
Yeah. So let's get right into it, man. Let's go back to origins. Boom, boom.
Yeah, the very beginning of his life.
So where are we born? We're born in the city of Tirion, in the noontide of Valinor, in Year of the Trees, 1190.
Yeah, this is probably the most beautiful place and time for the elves to be living.
Yeah, this is the dopest shit.
Yeah, I mean, during the height of the trees of Valinor is supposed to be just... I don't even know how to put it into words. It's supposed to be gorgeous.
Yeah, the blended light of the trees.
Just a complete utopia over in Valinor.
Yeah.
So, Fingolfin, as you may have heard in our last episode about Feanor, he was the son of Finwë and Indis, which is Finwë's second marriage.
Right, because his first marriage didn't turn out so well, which, we talked all about in last episode.
Yeah, so that makes Fingolfin the half-brother of Feanor. He's the whole brother of Finarfin, who was another son of the wedding of Finwë and Indis. Fingolfin is also described as, of the sons of Finwë, the strongest, the most steadfast, and the most valiant, which is a lot of praise.
Yeah, especially for among the Noldor, you know what I mean?
Right, because in my mind, I had always considered Feanor to be the strongest.
Right, yeah.
But it's directly written in the Silmarillion that apparently Fingolfin is the strongest.
Is the strongest.
I guess Feanor had the most fiery spirit.
Right. So he also had some pretty famous children. Well, 2 famous children and one who is scarcely mentioned.
Right.
So we got Fingon. He later became High King of the Noldor as well. He's the eldest son of Fingolfin here. And Turgon, who's the King of Gondor in the Hidden City.
Yeah, we've talked about him a few times in the past.
Yeah, you guys know him. Yeah, y'all know him.
And then his Fingolfin's third child, the less spoken of, Aradel the White.
Yes.
The mother of Maglin.
The mother of Maglin, yes, she's kidnapped by Eol, the
Yep.
Dark Elfin.
Mm-hmm. So at one point
Forcefully
she's forcefully wedded to Eol.
Yeah.
And they have that whole unhappy storyline. You can refer back to our Tuor story.
Yeah.
Learn all about that.
In season 1, I forget the episode.
But, I mean, other than his origins and his family, there really isn't a whole lot of information about Fingolfin's early life. Other than, hey, he was born here, this was his family.
Yeah, it's kind of like Jesus in that it just kind of jumps in.
Right.
It's like he was born of Indus and then, boop, he's an adult.
Yeah, most of the information starts around the time of the marriage of his parents, and then it jumps right over into his conflicts with Fëanor, which doesn't even happen until they're full-grown adults.
Yeah, and I assume that they've been adults for a while at that point.
Right, yeah.
Because they're elves, so this might be 500 years into their full adulthood. Who knows?
Yeah, they're old as hell.
They're old.
The Years of the Trees is a strange time, because I think the passing of time was a bit different, because this is before the sun and the moon.
Yeah, so who knows what a year really is.
Yeah, a year in the Year of the Trees versus a year of the sun and the moon, vastly different time spans. Nonetheless, so most of the information starts around his initial conflicts with his brother Fëanor, which I'm sure we've covered pretty well in the Fëanor episode previously, but we're gonna kind of run it down.
And now we come to Melkor and the Unrest of the Noldor, which is just after the noontide of the Year of the Trees.
Yeah, this is where things start to go downhill.
Yeah, this is where it really starts to happen as soon as Melkor gets involved. Go figure. So while they lived in Aman, there was always strife between the sons of Indus and the sons of Miriel. And there's really only one son of Miriel, Fëanor.
Yeah, so between Fëanor and his half-brothers. But, I mean, Fingolfin, he'd always try to forge a better relationship with Fëanor at most chances that he had. He was always kind of open to making things better. Fëanor, always kind of hot-headed. He's always on the edge.
Yeah. And it was at this time that one of the biggest blunders in the history of the Valar happens. They let Melkor go after 3 ages in captivity.
Yeah, this is the time when Melkor is released.
Yeah, and then he's like, "I'll be good," and then they're like, "All right, just move along, get out of here."
Yeah, just go on about your business.
But Tulkas is always looking after him.
Yeah, Tulkas was always kind of looking over his shoulder. Mandos was pretty against it initially, wasn't he? He spoke against releasing
Mandos doesn't like mercy.
No, he remembers. Mandos remembers.
Yeah, he didn't like. We talked about that in the Valar episode. He didn't. He counseled against the Valar forgiving the Noldor.
Yeah.
Like nope.
But nonetheless, because Manwë cannot really conceive evil, he doesn't really understand it. He says, "All right, why not?" So they release Melkor. And after he's released, he's not well received among everyone.
No.
Obviously, there's some bad blood there. He did some fucked up shit before they put him in captivity.
Yeah.
But the Noldor, of the clans of the elves, the Noldor specifically are pretty receptive of him because of how much they thirst for knowledge and how much knowledge Melkor was willing to give them.
Right. And for all intents and purposes, Melkor's pretty much the smartest guy around.
Oh, yeah.
Because he knows everything, a little bit about everything. Or he knows a decent amount about everything. Right,
we covered episode 1 of this season.
Yeah.
In the Valar episode, he got more than just one part of the mind of Ilúvatar when the Ainur were created. So he's pretty knowledgeable.
I feel like that Valar episode is going to become like the Sundering of the Elves episode in which we just refer back to it nonstop.
Refer back.
Yeah, refer back. You know Mandos. Talk about him in the Valar episode.
Yeah, go check it out.
But yeah, like the Noldor, they really dig Melkor. I mean, they like the knowledge that he can give to them.
Yeah, I mean, he was initially being let free. He was pretty fair in speech. You know? He was trying to play nice with everybody. So he's trying to get on everyone's good side. Really worked with the Noldor.
Yeah, and he did that for quite a while too.
Yeah, he did. And after he got everyone's praise, that's when he started secretly sowing some lies and misinformation throughout the Noldor. They're always so eager to soak up that knowledge they never stop to question whether or not all of it was true.
So do you think Melkor invented fake news?
I think it's safe to say Melkor was the one that invented fake news.
Fake news, guys.
Before they knew it was fake. So this sowing of lies and misinformation throughout the Noldor, this only deepened the wedge between Fëanor and his half-brothers, Fingolfin and Finarfin.
Yeah. He went right for that because he saw that as the weakest link.
Yeah, Feanor being the most hot-headed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was like, this is going to be a perfect situation to take advantage of, and he does.
And Feanor's also prideful, and Melkor always knows he can exploit people's pride.
Yeah, so he told Feanor that Fingolfin was going to try to usurp Feanor as the rightful heir to Finwë, because Feanor is firstborn.
Yes.
So he's trying to make him think, oh, Fingolfin's going to try to steal the kingship from you.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, he tells Fingolfin something similar. That Feanor's going to try to screw him over somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And, this just makes things even worse in their family. Talk about family issues.
Yeah. And eventually the lies really started to take roots in the minds of the minds of the Noldor. yeah, and a number of the Noldor started to believe that the Valar were somehow restraining them and holding them from leaving and going back to Middle-earth, where they came from.
Yeah, so after High King Finwë caught whiff of some of this unrest going around, he summoned all of the lords of his house to a big council to try to resolve the issue. He's trying to make things better. Let's communicate. So Fingolfin, being pretty prompt, he was the first one to arrive at the council, and as he was there early, he was trying to talk to his father about potentially restraining the rash actions of Feanor, because Feanor does act pretty rashly, that is true.
He does.
But poor timing, because as he's talking about this with his father, Feanor himself comes striding in. And not only that, he comes in fully armed.
Fully armed to the teeth.
Yeah, which is the first time any weapons have been openly brandished anywhere ever.
Yeah, and who taught them how to make weapons?
Melkor.
Yeah,
the Valar didn't teach them that. Aule didn't teach them how to make swords.
Yeah.
So this is when we get our first conflict, one of our first big conflicts between Feanor and Fingolfin. We got a little excerpt from the chapter in the Silmarillion. But even as Fingolfin spoke, Feanor strode into the chamber, and he was fully armed, his high helm upon his head, and at his side a mighty sword. "So it is, even as I guessed," he said. "My half-brother would be before me with my father, in this as in all other matters." Then, turning upon Fingolfin, he drew his sword, crying, "Get thee gone and take thy due place."
Fingolfin bowed before Finwë, and without word or glance to Feanor, he went from the chamber. But Feanor followed him, and at the doors of the king's house he stayed him, and at the point of his bright sword he set against Fingolfin's breast. "See, half-brother," he said, "this is sharper than thy tongue. Try but once more to usurp my place in the love of my father, and maybe it will rid that Noldor of one who seeks to be the master of thralls."
Yeah, so we got Feanor making quite a scene here at this, what was supposed to be a nice council to figure out what was going on.
Yeah. I love how both of us read Feanor dialogue there, and we both had the same voice for Feanor.
I think it's because we're both basing it totally off of...
the dude from the audiobook.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is the Feanor voice.
Robert.
Is awesome. Martin Shaw. Martin Shaw. He's awesome. Read, get the Silmarillion by Martin Shaw. He's fucking amazing.
Oh, yeah. That audiobook is wonderful.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so we've got Feanor here making public threats to Fingolfin. The first time anyone's ever brandished a weapon, and he straight up sets it on Fingolfin's chest and threatens to basically kill him.
Yeah, he'll kill him right there.
But I mean, after such a public scene, the whole source of all these problems and misinformation was figured out pretty quickly.
Yeah, they pretty quickly got them out of it.
After that, everyone was kind of like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
Hold on, everyone hates each other for no reason and is very confused? Jeez, I wonder who's involved.
Yeah, and then eventually they figured out, oh, it's because Melkor's been fucking telling everyone loads of shit. So at that point, they realize it's Melkor, but it's too late.
And this is when we get to the what they call the darkening of Valinor and the journey to Middle-earth. This is at the tail end of the Years of the Trees, guys.
Yeah, this is kind of the decline of everything.
So Melkor, having been found out, of course, is nowhere to be found. Exactly. And he had quickly fled south over to the dark region of Avathar. And there he meets and allied with the demon that takes the shape of a monstrous spider, Ungoliant. Have we talked about Ungoliant before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about her.
Yeah, we've mentioned Ungoliant, I think, a couple times.
Yeah, we talked about her at length in the Women in Tolkien episode, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Ungoliant and one of Ungoliant's famous spawns, good old Shelob.
Shelob.
Yeah, so in the year 1495 of the Years of the Trees, this is when Manwë holds a feast for the reconciliation of the Eldar. It's a big feast, basically. It's a big holiday that they hold yearly in Valinor.
And at this feast, Fingolfin, he publicly forgives Feanor.
Yeah, I think it's been a while at this point. I think as a result...
Wasn't it like 7 years or something
Something
like
like
that?
Because, Feanor got kicked out.
He was banished from Tyrion for I think 7 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But they invited him to this party, and everyone's in a good mood, and there Fingolfin publicly forgives Feanor, and everything seems to be all peachy again. We got a lovely little quote about what happens at the party. Then Feanor took his hand in silence, but Fingolfin said, "Half-brother in blood, full brother in heart will I be. Thou shalt lead, and I will follow. May no new grief divide us." "I hear thee," said Feanor. "So be it." But they did not know the meaning that their words would bear.
Dun, dun, dun.
Lovely foreshadowing.
Yeah, when you read the Silmarillion like a second time, you're like, man, there's a lot of foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah.
Of the shitstorm to come.
Yeah, when you know what's coming and you read some of these lines, you're just like, oh.
You're like, oh, boy.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, you don't even know what that means. So during this lovely feast where everybody seems to be all hunky-dory again, this is when Melkor and Ungoliant make their move. They take advantage of this big distraction, and they assault and destroy the 2 trees of Valinor.
It's probably the worst crime that anyone's ever committed.
And then shortly after that, isn't that on their way out, that's when he kills Finwë, right?
Yes, he goes up to Formenos, kills Finwë, steals a whole shitload of jewels, and most importantly,
the Silmarils.
The 3 Silmarils.
And dips the fuck out. Yeah, so this is basically the breaking point for Feanor's decision to leave Valinor. Up until this point, that's kind of what Melkor had been wanting to happen. All of his lies and deceit. He was trying to kind of campaign for them to leave.
Yeah.
He was trying to fuck everything up, and even though he's gone now, he's just dipped out of Valinor, his plan is still coming to fruition. Because now, Feanor is just hell-bent on revenge against him, basically.
Yeah, Feanor is on the warpath, as it were.
So after the death of High King Finwë, Feanor rallies up all of the Noldor that he can get, and he gave a passionate speech urging the Noldor to leave Valinor.
Yeah, this is like the George Patton from Patton, the movie, speech. This is going to get everybody. This is going to get everybody up.
Yeah, and he convinced pretty much everybody.
Almost all the Noldor, yeah. And Fingolfin thought it would be unwise to leave, but he didn't want to abandon his people to the rash leadership of Feanor. So he thought that Feanor was not the greatest leader, and he didn't want to have his people subject to that.
Yeah, I think that's just a good, that's a good example of Fingolfin being a good leader. Because even though he doesn't want to go and leave Valinor with Feanor, he realizes that's what his people are doing, and he does not want to leave his people up to the rash leadership of fucking Feanor. So he goes with them to try to, I guess, help them, save them from poor leadership.
Yeah. And also, how would it look? He just told them, where you go, I follow.
Right, exactly. Yeah. After they had this lovely heart-to-heart moment. So he's making good on his promise. And Fingolfin also had the largest host of the Noldor that were going to leave on the journey. So all the Noldor decided to go, and Fingolfin led the majority of them, which also caused them to travel slower.
Yeah. Feanor's host was all out there like, let's fucking do it, man. Let's get out of here. And they just took off.
Yeah, they just booked it. They're all inspired to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine Feanor's friends would be almost as fiery as he.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. So not long after setting out, Feanor, in his attempt to get to Middle-earth, he realizes he needs boats to get there, so he tries to seize the fleet of the Teleri ships in order to get to Middle-earth.
Yeah, and what this turns into is a big misunderstanding that generally becomes known as the kinslaying of Alqualande. And that being the Teleri weren't going to give him... Well, it's more confusing. It's confusing in more ways than one. You'll see why. We'll get into it right now.
Yeah, like we mentioned, Feanor's host was moving quicker, so they arrived to the Teleri first. They arrived to Alqualande first, and they're the ones that were very insistent upon taking the ships.
Mm-hmm.
Fingolfin would not have wanted to do that, obviously. But Feanor, since he was there first and no one else was there yet, he decided he was going to go ahead and try to fucking fight the Teleri to take their ships.
Yeah.
That was not a misunderstanding. That was just Feanor being a dick.
Mm-hmm.
The problem came when Fingolfin came late to the fight.
Yeah.
So he came with the largest host of Noldor, and they come up to Alqualande, this wonderful bay where they have all these beautiful ships, and they see that all of a sudden the fucking Noldor that went ahead of them are now fighting with the Teleri, and people are dying, and they're like, well, shit,
yeah,
let's go help our people.
Yeah, like if you're out at the bars or something and you see your friend getting his ass kicked by somebody, you don't like... Well, let's see who started this fight.
Well, hey,
Joel, are you in the... I realize you're getting your ribs broken right now, but are you in the wrong here?
Should I help you?
Who should I help, you know? Maybe you did something really wrong and I should help him kick your ass. Who knows?
Right. But, I mean, Fingolfin, he just jumped out into the fight. He thought that maybe even the Valar were trying to stop the Noldor from leaving. He thought maybe the Valar had convinced the Teleri to help them stop the Noldor.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mess. Anyway, so without rightfully finding out what the cause is, Fingolfin jumps into the fight and defends Feanor and the other Noldor, and that results in just a total slaughter, as we know, the kinslaying of Alqualande.
Not one of their finer moments. And that's one of 3 kinslayings throughout time.
The very first.
The first kinslaying.
And that kinslaying is kind of what brings about the doom of Mandos.
Yes, indeed.
Which is actually what we come to next. So after the slaughter and the theft of the ships, the Noldor go north a little ways and they encounter a dark hooded figure. And it's not really said whether it's Mandos himself or a herald of Mandos.
I think it was... I always thought it was Yanwe.
You thought it was a Yanwe?
That's what I always... Because usually when, like, somebody's got to go say some shit to somebody...
It's usually Yanwe.
It's usually Yanwe, yeah.
But it was just a dark a dark hooded figure, and they see him on top of this hill not far from them, and he proclaims the doom of Mandos as a result of the kinslaying. And after the declaration of the doom of Mandos, a bunch of them are like, fuck this shit. Like, this was obviously a mistake.
Yeah, the host of... everybody in Finarfin's host is like, we're sorry, can we go back? Mm-hmm. And they do, yeah. They're allowed to leave.
Yeah, they repent, they turn around, and they head back to Valinor. And they have the favor of the Valar after that.
Yeah.
But the rest of the Noldor all just kind of double down on leaving. Because they're like, well, we fucked up this much so far. I guess we might as well keep on going.
And one night, shortly after the Doom of Mandos was given, Feanor and those most loyal to him, they depart in the Teleri ships in secret.
Yeah, they just straight up say fuck it to the rest of the Noldor, I guess. After they realized they weren't going to ferry everyone across with these ships that they just committed an atrocity for. And they're like, well, I guess it's one more atrocity. Fuck the rest of the Noldor.
And they set them ships on fire at a place called Losgar, and that becomes known as the burning of the ships at Losgar.
Yeah, and Fingolfin's host can see the burning of the ships from the other side of the sea, and that's how they know
that they're fucked.
That they were fucked. They were betrayed.
Yep.
Feanor wasn't about to send the ships back to help them.
And they've already committed to leaving Middle-earth, so there's one more.
Right, so Feanor really fucked over Fingolfin here.
Yeah.
This was like one of the biggest fuck yous ever.
Yeah, dude. And this forces the host of Fingolfin to travel a pretty dangerous place called the Helcaraxe, which is an ice shelf, more or less, like a glacier, kind of, like a bunch of glaciers.
I mean, it's kind of like the equivalent of the Bering Strait.
Right, yeah, it's where where a bunch of ice is like in between 2 continents.
Yeah, so it was literally the only way that they could get to Middle-earth after the ships were gone, so they had to basically cross like a Middle-earth version of the Bering Strait, but it sounds a lot shittier than the Bering Strait.
Yeah. So it's described as vast fogs and mists of deathly cold, and the sea streams were filled with clashing hills of ice and the grinding of ice deep sunken.
Yeah, and I think it was it Ted Naismith who had that really awesome picture of the crossing of...
Yeah, I think so. If it's awesome and from the first age, it's probably Ted Naismith.
Yeah, and it just looks like a real desolate place. You should check it out. And so along the way, they lost, it was like, we saw somewhere somebody tried to estimate how many people died in the crossing. It was like thousands of people.
I heard one number that was like 2 million or something like that. And I'm like, there's no way. I don't think 2 million of them died. That's genocide. There's 2 million of them died on the way over.
Yeah,
no way.
It was an outrageous number. But I mean, when you think about it, they were the largest host.
Yeah.
And they had thousands of people, and they had to just cross this strait of just broken ice sheets, and they lost a lot of people,
including is it Turgon's wife?
Yes,
Turgon's wife, I believe.
Yeah, it was Turgon's wife that died.
Yeah,
and he never remarried after that.
Never remarried.
Yeah, that's a sad story on its own. But I'm sure we'll talk about Turgon in the future. So naturally, this loss of life only greatly increased the wrath and bitterness felt against the host of Feanor. But eventually, the host of Fingolfin finally arrived in Middle-earth, and they actually arrived in Middle-earth at the first rising of the sun.
Yeah, dude. What a time.
Yeah, it's a big event. I mean, this is when Fingolfin first sets foot with his host into Middle-earth. This is the rising of the sun, and this also marks the very beginning of the First Age.
Yeah, it also sounds like a Led Zeppelin song. Like a host of Noldor coming off this huge sheet of ice. Boom, boom,
at the rising of the sun.
At the rising of the sun, yeah.
Let the first age begin. Gnarly guitar solo.
Yeah.
So we actually got a little quote about the coming of Fingolfin's host into Middle-earth.
But as the host of Fingolfin marched into Mithrim, the sun rose flaming in the west, and Fingolfin unfurled his blue and silver banners and blew his horns. And flowers sprang beneath his marching feet, and the ages of the stars were ended.
What a glorious moment. Wow. Beautiful. I think that's the first official spring that Middle-earth had ever had, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's the first official, season, really, isn't it?
I think there was a technical spring when they had the lamps, wasn't there?
Yeah, the spring of Arda. Yeah, that was when everything was...
But this is the first spring of the ages, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
First spring of the First Age. So now that they're back in Middle-earth, then they get to come in contact once again with Melkor and his servants.
Yeah, they get into it pretty much right as they step foot on land.
Not initially, not right off the bat. Because at the rising of the sun, all of Melkor's servants fled underground.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. They totally took off. There was, all the servants are gone. They're scared of the sun.
Right. But, I mean, Fingolfin is still fucking pissed off at Melkor. Because Finwë was Fingolfin's dad, too.
Yeah.
So as soon as they set foot in Middle-earth and the sun rises and all of Melkor's hosts run and hide, Fingolfin just marches straightway, just right up to Angband, right up to the doors, because everyone's underground hiding. And this is when he challenges Melkor for the first time. But naturally, Melkor and his servants are still totally dismayed by this new flaming ball in the sky. Yeah. And they stay hidden underground.
They're not having any of that.
Yeah, no, they're not. He's not quite sure what to do at this point. There's a line somewhere in the Silmarillion that mentions that the Noldor would have actually had a chance to overthrow Melkor if they had acted while he was hiding from the sun.
Yeah,
he was originally dismayed by it all.
Yeah, if they would have, because the Feanor's hosts, when they arrive, they get attacked by orcs, right?
Right, because that's before the sun.
That's before the sun, and then so they come later. If they would have just as soon as what up Fingolfin, what up Feanor? Sorry about that back there. It's all good. Let's do this.
Let's do this thing. This is why we're here. Yeah, because that's when Feanor dies, right? Like in that first initial battle.
After that, the battle under the stars, he just charges right through up to Angband and Gothmog.
And he gets wounded. But this isn't about Feanor.
No, that was last episode.
Fingolfin. So after his initial attempt to confront Melkor at the gates of Angband, nobody showed because of the sun. Then Fingolfin turns around and he leads his host back west to Mithrim to rejoin the rest of the host of Feanor, who are hanging out around Lake Mithrim. And so this is going to be the first time that these two hosts have met up.
Seen each other since
the one fucked the other over. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's a pretty big fuck over. They had to cross the Helcarax to get here. Yeah, dude,
I'd be mad.
Yeah, I mean, due to that tension, the hosts of Feanor actually had to relocate to the south shore of the lake because they just weren't going to get along.
Yeah, they were just like, we'll move to that side of the lake.
Yeah, they were the smaller, they were the smaller hosts, and they're kind of the ones in the wrong. So they're like, I guess we'll just
I guess we'll take our leave.
We'll take our leave and go to the other side of the lake for now.
So shortly after Feanor's death, his oldest son Maedhros is captured by Morgoth. And Morgoth chains him by one arm to the precipice of a mountain.
Yeah, he's just kind of hanging there. It's kind of reminiscent of Prometheus. That's what happens to Prometheus in Greek mythology. He gets chained by the wrists to the face of a mountain.
Yeah, and then the birds come eat him.
And then birds come tear out his intestines every day.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't think birds come and tear out Maedhros' intestines every day.
No. But he is later rescued by Fingon. And it said, it's important to note that the friendship of Fingon and Maedhros goes back a long way. Like, this goes back to Valinor. So when they burnt the ships at Lothgar, which we talked about in the last episode, Maedhros refuses to take part in the burning of the ships because he knows Fingon's on the other side. And he's not about to screw his cousin over. Yeah,
Maedhros and Fingon's friendship goes back before any of the bad blood was around.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general, of the seven sons of Feanor, I mean, they're pretty much all dicks. Because they all do terrible shit.
Yeah, they do terrible things.
But
Maedhros is the coolest.
Yeah, he's the least dickish of
them.
He's the one that actually has some shred of humanity that we see now and then. Like, like the friendship with him and Fingon.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of as an act of goodwill between the houses, Fingon goes and rescues Maedhros from the face of this mountain.
Yeah. And he initially gets there and he sings, right? And Maedhros hears them and he asks him to kill him with his bow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fingon's like, no, fuck all that. So he just chops the arm off, the hand off. Mm-hmm. And Maedhros becomes one of those famous one-handed characters in Tolkien.
one of the many Tolkien characters that are missing some sort of appendage. And I don't know if we mentioned specifically that Fingon is the son of Fingolfin.
Right.
So, so this is kind of a way to heal the wounds between the houses as they see it.
And this also leads to a very important moment.
Very important.
Because at this point, because Feanor's dead, High King of the Noldor is Maedhros, because he's the eldest son of Fingon. Of Feanor, excuse me. And so he cedes the high kingship of the Noldor to the House of Fingolfin as a gesture of goodwill.
Yep, for being rescued.
Yeah.
So this is when Fingolfin first becomes High King of the Noldor, and this is in year 7 of the First Age. So they've been in Middle-earth about 7 years by the time this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And after this, Fingolfin would rule as High King of the Noldor for around 450 years. So he had a pretty long rule as High King.
And the Noldor, that pretty much immediately started setting up some pretty dope kingdoms in Beleriand.
Yeah, while Morgoth is hiding underground from the new daylight of the sun and the light of the moon, this is when the Noldor take the time to set up their kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a little lull in all of the attacks, basically.
Yeah.
And what attacks did happen during this time, after they got all their kingdoms established, I mean, they were repelled super easily. Because, I mean, after the Noldor got
They're dug in.
Yeah, they're dug in. They got all their kingdoms established, and Melkor is still not quite on top of this whole sun business. So the attacks that come after that are all repelled with relative ease.
Yeah.
It's a really nice time for the Noldor in Middle-earth.
And after what is known as the Dagor Aglareb, that's the glorious battle, right?
Yeah, it's like a complete victory for the Noldor.
That was a crushing victory where the Noldor just crushed the forces of Melkor. And after that, it established what was called the Siege of Angband, and it was relative peace. And Fingolfin ruled from within Hithlum.
Yeah, it was a peace it was like a watchful peace that lasted something like 400 years, around. And we've got a little excerpt about that. We've got a little excerpt about the Dagor Aglareb, the glorious battle. But Fingolfin and Maedhros were not sleeping, and they came upon the main host of Melkor from either side as it was assaulting Dorthonion. And they defeated the servants of Morgoth, and pursuing them across Ardgallen, destroyed them utterly, to the least and last, within sight of Angband's gates. That battle was named Dagor Aglareb, the glorious battle.
Yeah, it's a cool time.
Yeah, it's kind of the height of their time, I guess, in Middle-earth, being able to defend themselves. Because after this
is like they
can't so much.
I can just imagine them like, it looks like life here in Beleriand's going to be super easy from now on.
No, that's that's basically how it's described in the Silmarillion. They're all just like, oh, this is gonna be so easy.
Yeah.
We're scared of these orcs. They're nothing.
Nothing. We're going to establish super long, enduring kingdoms that'll never, ever fall or have anything terrible happen to them.
I mean, it's sort of true. By the time anything happens, these kingdoms have been around for like 400 years.
Yeah.
But that brings us up to the first major downfall for them.
Yeah.
This is what, the third or fourth Battle of Beleriand?
This is the fourth, I believe.
Okay, we're talking about the Dagor Bragolak. So this kind of brings us toward the end of Fingolfin's life.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the first stage.
And though the elves were able to contain Morgoth's orcs, they did not possess the strength to attack Angband directly.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong stronghold.
So that siege, that watchful peace, lasted for 400 years. And Melkor spent his time working down there.
Yeah, he may have not been active above ground, but...
Yeah, he was doing some nefarious shit down there.
He was increasing his strength and his numbers of his forces, and he even created some new deadly creatures.
Yeah. And in First Age 455, on a cold winter's night, when the elf watch was least vigilant, guess what happens? The gates of Angband burst open, and Melkor sends out rivers of lava and flame and poisonous fumes, and they cross the plains of Ardgalen, and the green plains are transformed into a barren desert, which was renamed Anfauglith, which is means the gasping dust.
Yeah, they said previously that Ardgalen was supposed to be just like a beautiful plain. They'd let horses graze there because they'd get particularly strong off of all the well-growing grass and things that were out there. And now it's just...
Yeah, can you imagine like this big,
desert.
like a big prairie? So it's like mountains on one side, big prairie, and then an evil-looking mountain, in the,
like three
mountains over there.
Evil peaks with like smoke coming out of them.
Yeah, but just in the middle, beautiful prairie land.
Just vast prairie. It's supposed to be gorgeous.
I imagine this somewhat like southeastern Minnesota before farming.
Prairie, a lot of prairie lands.
Yeah.
So in this immediate onslaught, this bursting forth of fire and fumes, many elves were immediately killed by the flames. I mean, it was supposed to be like rivers of flame and lava that just like came rolling out from Angband.
Not good.
And behind the flames came Balrogs, trolls, legions of orcs, Glaurung, and other monsters that they don't really name. So this isn't just some band of orcs that they've been dealing with trying to attack one of their strongholds. They've already completely eradicated anyone in front of them with lava and fire, and now there's like...
And now they're bringing out the tanks, essentially. Yeah.
Just monsters, man. We've got a quote about the initial onslaught of the Dagor Bragolak here from the Silmarillion. Then suddenly Morgoth sent forth great rivers of flame that ran down swifter than Balrogs from Thangorodrim and over all the plain. Thus Ardgalen perished, and therefore its name was changed, and it was called Aunfauglith, the gasping dust. Many charred bones had there their roofless grave, for many of the Noldor perished in that burning, who were caught by the running flame and could not fly to the hills. In front of that fire came Glaurung the Golden, father of dragons, in his full might, and in his train were Balrogs, and behind them came black armies of the orcs in multitudes such as the Noldor had never before seen or imagined. War ceased not wholly ever again in Beleriand.
Yeah, so there goes your little peace, your little era of peace.
Yeah, it's done. This is the beginning of the Dark Times as we've described it before. This is actually when the three chief tales of the First Age take place.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is where they begin.
This.
Yeah, after this is kind of the setup point for the three major tales.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the stuff.
Well, I mean, the Nirnaeth is. Well, the Bragolak sets up Baron Luthien.
Right, which is the first.
Yeah, which is the first. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
And yeah, I feel like everything up until this point, like everything that's happened in Middle-earth up until this point, has kind of been like a long prologue up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is when shit really hits the fan, and this is when we really start to get some of those super rich Tolkien stories from the First Age.
This is when it stops getting so broad.
Right.
When the stories like start to kind of flourish a little bit more.
Because this might just be my observation, but I feel like a lot of the major stories that Tolkien likes to tell usually take place in, like, I don't know, in a part of history where you're thrown into the middle of something.
Yeah.
He doesn't use his big stories to, like, build up civilization or anything. Like, his major stories start when shit starts happening.
Exactly. Yeah. They're all like major historical events are always the linchpin for his smaller stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have, or will at this point, I guess I'm not quite sure where it is at this point, we will go over some of the major battles of Beleriand more in depth. But for this point, for this episode, we're just going to kind of review what the general results were of the Dagor Bragollach, because it was a major point in history.
So let's get into who dies.
Yeah. Let's start off with all the death.
All the death. So Agnor and Angrod of the sons of Finarfin, those are Finrod's brothers, they are killed, dead. And Bragolas from the house of Beor, he's dead.
Yeah, because at this point we hadn't mentioned quite yet in this episode, but men have recently entered Beleriand for the first time.
Right, yeah, we didn't mention that. This battle involves men.
Yeah, this is one of the first major battles to involve men.
Yeah.
Or I guess the slaughter of men.
The wholesale slaughter of men.
Yeah.
Also Hador from the other house, the house of Hador is killed. From
the namesake.
Yeah, from Dorloman, yeah. And then Maglor's horsemen were burned alive on the plain of Lothlan, which was a fun part of the battle.
Yeah, that whole at the very beginning of the battle, all that running flame just torched all the open plains, all the horses and the horsemen.
Yes, and the death toll for the elves was very high. It was pretty high for everybody, but the elves, they took the brunt of it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's kind of where Melkor's gripe is with the elves. We tried to find specific numbers for the death tolls, but I couldn't find anything. I don't know if you'd seen anything.
No, not really.
But it was supposed to be just outrageously high.
And you are a dwarf expert. Dwarves are not in this battle, correct?
Right, not yet.
Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
But they are in the Nearnath.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So at this point, after the battle, Tolsirian and Maglor's Gap were both taken, and that gave Morgoth basically the entry to go south into Beleriand that he was looking for.
From either direction.
From either direction,
Yeah.
yeah. From the northwest or the northeast, he was able to just spill down and do whatever he wanted.
Mm-hmm. And Finrod and Orodreth, they fled back to Nargothrond from Tolsirian because...
Yeah, they were the ones holding that gap.
Yeah, because Tolsirian they originally called Minas Tirith, which, as we know from our Minas Tirith episode, translates to...
Silver Tower, White Tower?
Tower of Guard.
Oh.
Yeah, Tower of Guard.
Sorry.
Yeah, but anyway, that's all fucked up. Sauron takes control of that. Celegorm and Curufin, they also go back down to Nargothrond.
Yeah, because Celegorm and Curufin's land, that was up in the northwest near Maglor's Gap. That got all fucked up. So they had to find some place else to go. So they were kind of refugees in Nargothrond after that.
Maglor retreated back to his territory with heavy losses, and he was in a place called Himring, which is over in the northeast of Beleriand, correct? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, Caranthir fled down south to Amon Ereb with Amrod, his brother. I think that's where Amrod and Amros, I think that's where they were hanging out. That's where they were based, down in south.
And Morgoth's orcs took the mountain forests of Mount Rainier. Excuse me. I always want to say Mount Rainier because that's in fucking Washington. Mount Rainier, and they defiled Lake Helivorn, which sucks. I imagine that one of the best ways to wholesale defile Lake Helivorn would be, have you ever seen that video with the Cannonball Duke? You ever seen that?
Yeah, I think so.
Where that dude...
I think I've seen it as a repeating gif. It's just someone with a naked dude on the dock.
It's a video, yeah, and it's a naked man who jumps off of a dock, and before he hits the water, he takes his shit, and the turd just bloops into the water just before he does. So I imagine the orcs are doing this constantly.
They're just shitting into the
They're
lake.
just cannonball duking. Like, that's how... They're like, Master, we must defile the lake. How will we do this? And they're just like, Cannonball Duke! And then it's just thousands of orcs pooping in the water.
I love that video. It's super funny.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite
just like
things.
sprinting off a dock and then pulling his knees up for a cannonball and just...
Yeah, it's that person's a hero.
I always feel concerned for his dog who jumps in after
Yeah, the
him.
dog jumps right on top of the turd. Anyway, we digress. So High King Fingolfin, he was so distraught and enraged by the loss that he rode straight to Angband and confronted and fought Melkor himself. And that's what we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah, that was the opening excerpt, was his ride over there. So we've actually broken down the rest of that story because the way that it's told in the Silmarillion is just too beautiful not to read out loud.
Yeah.
So we're just going to kind of cover that story by continuing the excerpt.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Then Morgoth hurled aloft Gron, the hammer of the underworld, and swung it down like a bolt of thunder. But Fingolfin sprang aside, and Grond rent a mighty pit in the earth, whence smoke and fire darted. Many times Morgoth essayed to smite him, and each time Fingolfin leaped away, as a lightning shoots from under a dark cloud. And he wounded Morgoth with 7 wounds, and 7 times Morgoth gave cry of anguish, whereat the hosts of Angband fell upon their faces in dismay. Yeah, that was like... So orcs are literally like watching this, like, no, my lord, no.
Right. And I mean, I just think it's crazy. So he just, as we mentioned in the opening excerpt, he was so pissed off that people thought he was one of the Valar as he fucking rode in fury up to Angband. And now here he's actually fighting Melkor himself. He's just an elf. And like most of the Valar couldn't take Melkor on one-on-one until they got Tulkas. And here Fingolfin's just like, let's fucking do this. This is enough. I'm done with this shit. Let's settle this shit now.
I just thought of a funny crossover where we could cross over 2 of my favorite things, right?
Okay.
So you remember the scene in A Clockwork Orange where like the big fight scene where he fights the other gang in the beginning?
Oh, yeah.
Remember the line, come and get one in the yarbles. If you've got any yarbles, thou eunuch jellyfish thou. Yeah. That's what's happening here. He's coming to he's coming to say, come and get one in the yarbles if you've got any.
And he fucking does. He's just an elf and he wounds Morgoth 7 times.
7 times.
That is super impressive.
And one of which is he mutilates the shit out of his foot.
Yeah.
To the point where he never like walks right again. Like
An elf wounded Morgoth 7 times and then fucked up his foot to the point where he had a limp forever. Like that's saying something. Damn. So let's continue this excerpt, part 2 of the excerpt. Here we go. But at the last, the king grew weary, and Morgoth bore down his shield upon him. Thrice he was crushed to his knees, and thrice he arose again and bore up his broken shield and stricken helm. But the earth was all rent and pitted about him, and he stumbled and fell backward before the feet of Morgoth. And Morgoth set his left foot upon his neck. Yet, with his last and desperate stroke, Fingolfin hewn the foot with Ringil, and the blood gushed forth black and smoking, and filled the pits of Grond. Thus Fingolfin, High King of the Noldor, most proud and valiant of the kings of old, died.
Right on.
Yeah, and when Fingolfin died, he was 3,426 years old.
Just a young boy.
Just a young strapping lad.
There's no Círdan the shipwright, that's for goddamn sure.
No Círdan the shipwright.
Is that the first Círdan the shipwright reference of season 3?
That might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, go back and check the season finale of season 1.
Check the tapes.
Círdan the shipwright, our favorite character. But back to more solemn topics.
Yes. After Fingolfin died, Melkor took his body and broke it, and was about to throw it to the wolves for dinner, when Thorondor took the king's body, Thorondor being the lord of the Eagles of Manwë.
Yeah, you get this epic moment. I mean, I guess it's not epic at all. It's quite distressing, because there was this epic battle, and then Fingolfin gets killed, and Melkor is about to... He already broke his body. I don't even quite know what that... I feel like that
he
just means...
fucking broke it. Like that's
took it in his 2 hands and just...
like the rabbits,
and
like
he's about...
Gollum.
Yeah.
Is it Crunchable? Yeah.
He's about to throw it to his wolves when this giant eagle comes down.
Which we just learned is its wingspan is 180 feet.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Thorondor's wingspan, tip to tip, 180 feet. Imagine that.
That's got to be
crazy.
like 80-foot wings on you. Like how thick the body of the bird is.
Right.
I don't know.
All right. I don't know.
It's a huge freaking bird, guys.
It's a big old bird. Big bird.
Big bird, yeah.
We've actually got another little excerpt about Thorondor fucking up Melkor.
And Morgoth took the body of the Elven king and broke it, and would cast it to his wolves. But Thorondor came hastening from his eyrie among the peaks of the Crissaegrim, and he stooped upon Morgoth and marred his face. The rushing of the wings of Thorondor was like the noise of the winds of Manwë, and he seized the body in his mighty talons, and soaring suddenly above the darts of the orcs, he bore the king away.
It's one epic bird.
Yeah. Like we said, 30 fathoms wide, 180 feet.
Yeah, fucking massive. And he fucked up Melkor's face, too.
Yes, that's another thing. I was just talking to somebody, one of our fans on the internet, and he was telling me that he's pissed off that people do first stage artwork, and they show Melkor. They don't add the 7 wounds and the facial, like his foot isn't fucked up like it should be, and they don't add the scarring on his face.
Yeah, it's true, because didn't he have like a major scar over one of his eyes or something like that?
Yeah, because he nearly got blinded by fucking Thorondor.
Yeah, in that fight, he got 7 wounds, he got his foot all marred and fucked up, so he got a limp, and then he got one of his eyes fucked up. Like,
yeah.
Fingolfin didn't kill him, but damn, just him and Thorondor together in that one assault, they fucked him up more than anyone else.
He'll never forget that, that's for sure.
Yeah, gosh darn it.
That'll be a fight you'll never forget, that's for sure, huh?
Oh, and then every time I think of how much that fucking sucks, I just think of that awesome scene when he gets his feet hewn out from under him.
Yeah.
At the end of the first
when
stage.
They cut the remainder of his 1.5 other feet.
Yeah. He begs for pity, and they're just like, fuck you, Melkor. Goodbye to your feet. Chaining you up. You're done.
You're done. So Thorondor, he brings Fingolfin's body to a mountaintop overlooking Gondolin. And there, Turgon built a cairn over the remains. And it stood until the changing of the world, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another one of those points, geographical points that they say like stayed as an island.
No, that's
for
true.
a while.
This is an island for a while. Yeah, and then at the end of the Second Age, it gets destroyed.
Yeah, I think so. I don't really know. They don't. At the end of the Second Age, they don't really say what
gets
disappears
destroyed.
And what doesn't.
But
so
things do.
I like to think that the island where his cairn is still there. I like to think that Tol Morrowind is still there, the saddest point.
Yeah,
ever.
saddest point in history.
And then they say also that the peak of Numenor is still an island somewhere.
Yeah.
The Meneltarma.
Yeah.
That's actually, I think that has a lot to do with the Unfinished Tales, right?
Yeah, I think they talk about that.
They talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
The secret island.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, okay, so that's the death of Fingolfin, everybody.
Yeah.
Sad to see him go.
Yeah, that fight scene with him and Melkor, I think, is like one of my favorite fight scenes, because that's like what you would have expected out of Feanor.
Yeah, dude.
But Feanor was too brash and he died.
Yeah, Balrog's got him.
So after Fingolfin's death, his son Fingon went on to be High King of the Noldor. And Fingolfin became known as the strongest, most steadfast, and most valiant of the sons of Finwë. And he is also called the most proud and valiant of the elven kings of old. So he's just given a buttload of titles. Because I mean, who else rode up and fought Melkor hand to hand?
Yeah, man. Nobody. That's who.
Nobody.
All right, guys. So what did we learn about today, man? We learned all about Fingolfin, Prince of the Noldor, right?
Yeah. So we kind of learned about his origins, his history with his family early on.
His family history.
His family, yeah, that's a mess. We learned all about his travels to Middle-earth and then some of his confrontations after he got there.
Setting up kingdoms and then eventual downfall. Yeah.
Fingolfin's history is pretty key as basically a prelude to all of the, like we said, the major tales that happen in the First Age.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like Fingolfin. I think he's probably my favorite of the princes of the Noldor. I don't know about you.
I might like... Well, I have this weird love-hate relationship with Feanor, but I also really like Felagund.
Yeah, Felagund is probably a very close second for me, because Finrod Felagund is like, I think he's described as the fairest, right? The fairest of all the elves.
Yeah, the fairest and most beloved, yeah.
He's quite noble, too.
So we might be talking about that next week? I don't know, right? Maybe?
I guess we'll find out.
I guess we'll find out. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for listening. This has been Keep on Tolkien. Well,
yeah, this has been part 2 of our 3-parter on Princes of the Noldor. Thanks for listening through with us.
Yeah, and so hit us up on social media in the off time, guys. We got a Facebook, we got a Twitter, we got an Instagram, and a YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, and you can pretty much find the podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. If you have to go out of your way to find this, just go check out wherever you normally get your podcasts, and we should be there.
Yeah, the podcasting app that I use has us on it.
Oh yeah,
which is really weird because I use it to listen to all the NPR podcasts and all that stuff.
And then you get all the updates of everything.
And I get updates from us. It's like I can tell when Joel has uploaded the episode because a notification comes up from my casting app.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Also, there's the Patreon.
Yeah, I can't forget. Come check us out on Patreon. It's new for us, and we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and what Patreon is briefly is a way for you to donate to help us create content for you, and you get to set your own donation. It's a monthly subscription, anywhere from $1 to $1 billion a month.
Yeah, whatever hint you want to give, whether it's closer to 1 or $1 billion, that is up to you.
And also, what it also does is it gives you exclusive content, which we work on. And it's all really fun, too.
Yeah.
We kind of designed the Patreon stuff to be really fun.
Yeah, it's a thank you for helping us out, because every dollar that we get in Patreon does seriously help us out a lot with keeping things going. And so we thought we'd do some fun stuff.
I would say that, would you say, Joel, that the Patreon content is Keep on Tolkien unbridled?
Oh, yeah. I mean, most of the stuff that's on there, I think everything we've recorded so far is not only not safe for work, but I think we were a little drunk when we recorded.
We tend to have we tend to have a few drinks when we record Patreon.
It's a lot of fun. So whereas like these episodes are a lot more informative and stuff, and we banter in between, the Patreon stuff is just kind of us.
Yeah,
fully loose.
Goofy. Yeah, fully loosey goosey. You know,
a little loosey goosey.
All right, guys. Well, that's all for us today. I've been Danny J,
and I have been Joel N. And as always, guys,
keep on Tolkien.
Keep on Tolkien.
Aure and Tulaba.